Bitcoin, Bitcoin, Bitcoin as the king of crypto. And we are in a bear winter, as you can see. But, I think this is what would be actually a great opportunity to look for that number one altcoin. And I think you should be helping me find this. I am an altcoin specialist and I'm Crux. And what I'm going to do in this live stream is I'm going to compare what our previous live stream was. And it was all about finding those top 7 altcoins. We're going to stack them 1 through 7, and then we're going to compare those against any other altcoin suggestions that you guys have. So this live stream is all about finding that number one altcoin to invest in a bear winter. So we'll also talk about the quantum FUD. So I'm sure you've been scrolling through Twitter or maybe even on YouTube, you've seen a video talk about quantum computing and it being the number one security measure for what cryptocurrencies are. So I'll definitely give my take on that, and it'll be pretty brief. So definitely stick around because after that we'll go into the number one altcoin. And also bear with me because I just got back from the dentist. Half of my face is frozen right now because I just got a filling / cavity. So just bear with me a little bit on this live stream, and we're gonna probably go well over an hour. Our last live stream was the first one that we've had over 80 minutes. Actually, it was over about 100 minutes actually. So it was over an hour and a half. So, and it was all about finding the top 7 altcoins. And what we did is you guys would give me a suggestion, I would give a reasoning, and then we would filter out as such. So this live stream is going to be very fun. So strap in. If it's your first time, make sure you subscribe, share this with a family and a friend. And again, Bitcoin is king, but there's opportunities in this crypto space for asymmetric upside, and that's what we try to find here at the Crux of Crypto. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the current state of the markets. We have a $2.4 trillion market. It's been pretty stagnant fairly as of like the past almost month at this point. We've been sitting pretty close to about 2.4 trillion. It's up and down. Sometimes we'll get as high as like 2.6 and we'll go right back down. So you guys know I am definitely I'm about 70% certain still that we are in a bear winter pushing lower. So I don't think that the FUD is over. And honestly, I don't think the macro news is as important as most people say. So every day as analysts, we try to wrap our head around the things like Iran and all these different tensions going on in the world. But I think overall, the crypto market is kind of in its own thing. So, and I can prove this because there's times where the S&P 500 and gold were just doing very good over the past 6 months or so, while crypto hasn't been. So crypto is its own asset class. Typically it's treated as a risk on asset, but I think it has its own macro environment, which is the 4-year cycle. And I've been very adamant about that since October, and it's how I call the top. So I think I will call the bottom of October of this year. So, do with that with what you will, and about 70% certain. Let's go ahead and go into a couple of trending cryptocurrencies, and then we'll move into some of the quantum FUD, and then we'll jump into those different 7 picks that I already chose. So we got Avalanche, Cardano, Pudgy Penguins, Bitcoin, BitTensor. None of these really stick out, but if you look over there on the right hand side or above my head, you'll see a lot of red. And that's not to be what I definitely want to talk to people about. Is just because your project is red does not mean it's a bad project. It means the overall scape of things are rough, right? And there's a lot of people on Twitter, there's a lot of people on YouTube that are trying to FUD people out of bags. For example, Cardano especially. It may not be doing the best in price action, but if Bitcoin's not doing good and Cardano's not doing good, and then it's okay. If Bitcoin is doing good and Cardano's not doing good, then it's not okay. So this live stream, you'll definitely hear about asymmetric upside and why you always compare everything to Bitcoin. All right, we got some Bitcoin's trending, by the way. BitTensor is definitely gonna be trending for a while now. It is one of the projects that has done fairly well holding up against its previous lows and its all-time highs. So it's not as down as most altcoins currently. And we'll definitely be talking about BitTensor quite a bit today. I'm not gonna spend too much time on it right now. We see quantum resistant ledger. Wow. So that is a name if I've ever seen one. This is the first time I've heard about it. And honestly, it might be worth looking at for a quick second. So we have about 133 mil projects. So it is fairly at a mid to low cap crypto. It is in its 3rd bull market. This thing's been out since 2017. So it went through the 2017 cycle, the 2021 cycle, and then the 2025 cycle. So this thing definitely has some leg under it, or some wind under its sail, and it's moving up and right. So I can't say this is a bad project just based off of price action. So that's something to consider. You guys know I'm not super big on price action. I'm much more on what this white paper will say, or what the website will say. But the quantum resistant ledger, this is branding. So, you know, actually just saw the founder, I'm pretty sure it was the founder of Zcash, and he talked about how uh, ZK snarks or shielded transactions are actually quantum resistance, which is false. So a lot of these people in crypto are trying to market their project as quantum resistance, but honestly, very few projects are able to stand the test of time, especially with something this big of a threat. And I'll talk about Bitcoin itself here in a second, because the devs are already at work trying to solve this issue. And again, I'll give my take here in a second, but yeah, I would not go ape into this project, you know, especially not here right now. I think there's way better opportunities in a bear winter currently, and you will definitely hear about better projects asymmetrically as we go through this live stream. So moving on, we got some Algorand, some Siren. AI agents are absolutely crushing it. Rarely you'll ever see an AI agent in the top 100. So that's pretty cool to see. Based, this project is looks fairly new, not even out a week yet. Actually, not a month. This goes by, no, that is a week. So it's a very new project. Aerodrome. So Aerodrome's a project we're very bullish on here at the Crux of Crypto. We'll talk about Solana in a little bit. Hyperliquid for sure we'll talk about. Monad. Yeah, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this because it is a Coinbase project. The thing with Coinbase and for the Coinbase One users is they are allowed to invest early into different projects now. So Monad is the one and only project that has been released early on Coinbase. But what happens is if you pay the, let's just say $60 a year membership for Coinbase, you can get access to those tokens. And then what happens is days later, the token will release on the platform. So I talked about this in one of my Coinbase videos about how do I make $50 per day using the Coinbase exchange. And I would say the most important takeaway of this was within a 48-hour period after it got listed publicly on Coinbase, it 2x'd. So those are the type of opportunities we look for as gem hunters especially. But as you can see, right over there, it had a massive retracement, and it looks like it's finally starting to stabilize. This is a layer one. It doesn't do anything special. It's just another project on the block. And I'm telling you, you're going to learn a ton about altcoins this live stream, because that's what I do. I compare them. If you look at my 20 different versus videos, they are just, in my opinion, just awesome in terms of what they do in terms of like teaching others, comparing. And for me personally, the reason why I resonate with them is because I always learn the most by comparing one thing against the other. So you hear me talk about Bitcoin a lot, but the reason I talk about Bitcoin is because I need to figure out how to compare it to this altcoin. Because if I'm not going to buy Bitcoin, it better be a better asymmetric risk. And there's very few better asymmetric risks that exist within crypto. So a lot of people, they try to take their chances, and a lot of people get burnt. So we're going to try to prevent that here by weeding out some stuff like Monad, for example. If you don't have something that you're bringing to the table that's brand new, I don't want anything. I don't want you part of my portfolio going into this next bull market. I need innovators and I need visionaries. So, all right, that was very long-winded. Let's go ahead quickly into the fear and greed. We'll look at the monthly, and then we'll jump into the quantum talk. So fear and greed's looking rough, barely above 10. Again, I talked about this 2 weeks ago on my last live stream, and man, it's very rare that it's ever this bad. I don't even know if it's been this bad for this long of a period, and I can prove it because if I go to the Bitcoin monthly here and scroll down, this is a pretty cool website, by the way. Definitely want to check it out. We are almost 6 red months in a row. So all the way from October, where I did call the top, we have November, a negative 17.5 pullback, bringing that to a negative 20% inclusive in December, and then another 10% in January. That's 30%, and then 44% or so going into February. And we're up about 1%, if you want to call that up, in March. So it's been pretty rough 24-hour period, 48-hour period. And it's been rough, honestly, the past 2 quarters. So definitely strap in. We've only seen 6 red months right here. So you had 2018, if I'm not mistaken? No. One, two, three, four, five. Yeah, so we've only had 6 red months once. So we're about to rival it, and that is to be expected. I do have this video that's coming out here most likely on Monday of next week. It's all about the Supercycle. So you guys heard me talk earlier that I don't think the bear market winter is over yet. And I'm happy. I'm ecstatic about it. It gives me more time to go ahead and lower those dollar cost averages and accumulate wealth. So like I've said in the past, you should be double, triple, quadruple working as hard as you typically do, because right now you should not be sleeping. You should be acquiring as much fiat currency as possible. We call that fiat mining when you go to a job and make money, and then you convert that into Bitcoin and these altcoins. So that's how you do it if you want to increase your risk appetite as an investor. But the super cycle, there's something that sticks out in this video that I definitely want to, I'm not going to spoil too much of it, but what I want to say, I'm going to say two things. First is everyone was calling this last bull market the institutional cycle, and Crux wasn't. Crux was calling it the regulatory cycle. I talked about the FIT21 Act, the Genius Act, the Clarity Act. I talked about the crypto czar David Sachs. I talked about the digital asset stockpile. I talked about all of these things and why institutions are not here yet, because nothing inside the top 250 other than Tesla holds Bitcoin. So institutions are not here. Retail investors like you and I are investing through ETFs like BlackRock. So until these treasuries really pour in, I don't think we're the institutional cycle. But I'll say this next bull market, the framework is set for this next one to be the institutional cycle. And I'm going to explain exactly what that means and what it means for the 4-year cycle, because for 2 straight bull markets, Crux has been all about the 4-year cycle. And I'm going into this next bull market already in my head saying 2029 is when the Bitcoin 4-year cycle breaks, right? A lot of people thought it already broke. It hasn't. Even if we bottomed out, we already dropped 50% from 126 all the way down to 60K. So technically we would still be in a 4-year cycle if we went up and right from here. Because if an asset class drops 50% every 4 years, it's still a trend. So we're not out of that 4-year cycle. You're going to have to wait at least at a minimum another 4 years to see if it still holds up. But I think with the institutions, I'll be honest, and I've done the math, if it goes from 18% to 36%, because every 4 years the institutions double the percentage of Bitcoin in terms of everybody else's holdings. So right now they hold 18%. 2021, they held 9%. So 36% in 2029, in my opinion, is too much for it to collapse another 50. I mean, it might go 50, but it's not going to go 70%. Like I think it's going to go this bear winter. So and usually I'll be honest, these Bitcoin videos typically don't get a lot of views on my channel. Most of my views come from the altcoins and the comparisons and the verses and those types of things. But these are the most important ones as an investor. So I strongly encourage you to wait around for that video. And again, it drops next week. Don't exactly look at the 186 days. It's pretty close to that. But October of this year is when it starts. So here we go. All right, let's go ahead and jump into some quantum talk. After the quantum talk, I'll jump into the poll. I'll jump into a quick session of Q&A, and we'll jump into those top 7 cryptocurrencies. So real quick, this, if you've been sleeping under a rock, this is the big news article of the day. It was, actually this happened last night. This was Google just releasing a quantum paper, and it talks about how Bitcoin is in jeopardy, and projects have roughly 3 years to upgrade their security before quantum computers make current encryption obsolete. So what happens when Google says stuff? Everyone starts not so much selling the crypto, like smart money is not going to go and just sell everything, right? A lot of retail investors may do that, but at the end of the day, I think of it as retail has, or Google in particular, has a lot more information than we do. So what happened in 2021 was absolutely historic in terms of like just going through life. I don't know anything that's more game changing than LLMs. So OpenAI came through, they dropped ChatGPT in like a light switch. Society changed. We have these large language models that can change how everything works in terms of how we perceive work, how we acquire money, and these types of things. So it's already proven that something can drop on us at the blink of an eye, and we only could be reactionary to it, right? I mean, technically we can prepare right now for quantum computing, but at the end of the day, if Bitcoin is a target, then also are the banks. So, and everything else that's SHA-256 or however else that they bypass these security parameters or these algorithms that these cryptocurrencies are built on. So, why I think this is actually a pretty big deal. It's not so much like the timing that Google drops this. It's all about preparation, because if 100% of your money is in things that can be targeted by quantum computing, then it might be smart to diversify. So what cannot be targeted by quantum computing? Gold. That's a great way to diversify. Maybe have some shares of different stocks and these types of things. But at the end of the day, quantum computing is the biggest risk for cryptocurrencies. And yeah, so I wouldn't even know what the second biggest risk, but that would definitely be the biggest risk. And I think it's important to diversify. So that's the only takeaway that I get from this article, really. I wouldn't go and sell all of your cryptocurrency, but I would definitely suggest buying stuff like gold and things that cannot be targeted until we understand completely how to set up the correct security parameters. And if you think about it, like in terms of like white hat and black hat hackers, you always need a issue or you always need a problem before you have a solution. So if the people that are malicious are advancing technology faster than the people that are not, you're going to have an issue. And that's how exploits happen. The people that are advancing technology, we do our best to try to bulletproof these things, but there's always going to be some little thing that we miss. And it's just a matter of time, before that gets exploited. So again, diversify. And that was my moment on talk about why quantum computing is a big deal and you should not be underlooking this. So let me know, what are your thoughts of quantum computing? Do you share similar ones to me? But I'm going to take this time to go ahead and read over the first segment of Q&A, my favorite time of these live streams. So we got Mike Jr., Keeta. So we have a couple Keeta heads up in here. Mr. J is talking about Keeta in their Discord. I'm in their Discord. I'm actually not going to pat myself on the back too much, but I'm a name around that community. I got a couple videos. I brought over 10,000 eyes on Keeta, and I'm proud of that. So I think Keeta is a pretty dope project, and it is doing pretty well with this past week. We're probably up like 80% from its low, so why not? Now, I would not be taking profits. I wouldn't be selling any crypto honestly, I wouldn't be selling any crypto for the next almost 4 years. The next time that Crux sells any crypto will probably be 2029. I mean, there may be an off opportunity where we just go crazy into like 2028 and I make a ton of money and I take profits and buy a car or something like that. But other than that, I don't plan on just taking profits on into cash and just sitting on it. It doesn't make sense to me. Just the best asymmetric risk right now, Bitcoin. Hi, Crux, is Angel. What up, Angel? Hope you're doing well, and thank you for supporting the stream. As always, Brian. It links everything links. So it looks like we already have our number one contender over here, Brian, throwing Chainlink in there. If you own some Chainlink, shout out to the Link Marines in the chat right now. I got some Chainlink, and I love that project. So it could win today's number one altcoin. Mike, anybody know if there was any news that pumped Keeta over 50% in the last 2 days? Smash that like. Mike, I'll be honest, I don't know. I've kind of been, like, my mind's been pushing a lot of other, as you guys know, in the Discord, we have 5,500 plus members in there. Absolutely crushing it. And I have a ton of roles in this company between, working as like customer service and like creating content. And I mean, most of the stuff you see on this channel, from the thumbnails all the way to the description, everything else is what I do. So I am a very busy person, but I'm 35 years old, and what better thing to be at this age in my prime than be talking to people about cryptocurrency. So definitely smash that like, says Mike, because we are doing well here at the Crux of Crypto. Arbitrum Kaspa, says Owl. Those are two pretty controversial projects. He even threw IGRA in there. So IGRA, if you don't know, is a scaling solution built on Kaspa. And IGRA Labs is pretty dope. I actually prefer them over Casplex, and we'll probably talk about Kaspa a little bit and see if it does win that number one altcoin pick. All right, Aaron. Afternoon. You got Sui, Celestia, Injective, and Kaspa. Those are pretty good ones. Now, Sui, I'll be honest, Sui has a chance at winning today. Tia definitely doesn't. I like Tia. I hold Tia. There's no way you're going to be able to sell me on Tia beating a Sui, etc. It's just, it hasn't done enough. I do like modular blockchains. And again, it is a first mover in certain aspects. So I respect that. Injective. I think Injective, it's had its time to really prove stuff. And in terms of like modern, all right, I'm not gonna spend too much time solving this yet. And I want you guys part of it too. So I'll wait until I knock out the 7, list those, and then we'll talk about each one on which one wins. So, but that's a good list, Aaron. Good stuff. Zebek Network says TRW. That's a good one. We got a lot of Keeta in here. So I would say Keeta, out of you guys, Keeta is the #1 cryptocurrency so far that is an altcoin. Keeta, it's booming, says Troy. Wow. All right. So you guys are already telling me I need to make another Keeta video. So if you think I need to make another Keeta video, let me know in the comments and I will be on it. Just give me like 2 weeks and I'll get another one out there for you. We have 26 people and 7 likes. I mean, now we're at 42, Angel. So it looks like we're getting it up there. I would prefer 50 plus. So make sure we try to get more people in here. I think when I start talking about altcoins, it'll definitely go up. But as long as we're over 50 concurrent, I will not leave this live stream, which is wild because last live stream, again, we went 100 minutes and I did not stop. So that was wild. And that was actually the best live stream. You guys were absolutely crushing it in the chat. Welcome to all who just joined us. Click the like. Let's go. Grateful. This is the first person that said Tao. And Tao easily deserves to be in this conversation. I will definitely be hitting Tao here in a second. Keeta surprised us all today. So again, another Keeta person. Looks like you guys are going to force Crux to be a Keeta maxi going into this next. No, I'm just kidding. But I will say this. For a small project like Keeta, I honestly believe that I'll be close to like 6 figures going into next bull market at the end of it, like 2029. Give me 4 years. I'm going to get there. For subscriber count, Keeta's been here since 2,000 subscribers. So you guys, I will not forget you, and you guys will be told to the world as I progress. So that's what I love about it. These communities that support me will definitely get support in return. Hell yeah. Send that new Keeta video, says Mike. We got a couple people that want the Keeta video. Wait, you didn't finish talking about inject, right? Yeah, Reiki. I didn't want to go too in depth about injective only because we're about to go crazy as I go through my 7, and then we'll talk about all the other currencies. I didn't want to interrupt this Q&A segment into too technical of analysis. So, but we'll definitely talk about many of these other projects. Dogecoin. Will Dogecoin be the #1? I doubt it, but who knows? Tau. So we got some more Taus, Suis. All right, what up, Crux, says Melch. If you had to sell one coin from your Sui, Arrow, Link, Ondo, or Sol, which would you sell? So let me go ahead and read this one out aloud again one more time. If you had to sell one, Sui, Aerodrome, Chainlink, Ondo, and Solana. I mean, first of all, that's a very good list of 5 different cryptocurrencies. Aerodrome is going to be, all right, so why would I choose Aerodrome? 2 reasons. You have Base ecosystem. They have already said, well, Coinbase has already said that they're going to create a Base token, which acts as a gas token for the network. Honestly, I'm not on board with it. I don't agree with what Brian Armstrong and them are doing over there, Luke Youngblood, etc. But they're going to do what they're going to do. So I think what happens whenever you introduce a native cryptocurrency, especially to an L2, is it stifles like the main applications that people invest in as far as hedges. So for example, people bought Aerodrome because there was no Base token. So it's like, if I want to invest into the Base ecosystem, I just go ahead and buy the #1 application built on it. You got Aerodrome and you have Morpho, which are 2 very solid projects. And I'm not telling you to go sell it right now, but I will tell you, I could build up a better like reason to hold and buy cryptocurrencies from Sui, Link, Ondo, and Sol than holding Aerodrome. So I would definitely sell Aerodrome of that group. So I said Coinbase creating a Base token is the first reason. The second reason for Aerodrome, why I'd sell Aerodrome, look at Hyperliquid. Man, like these perpetual dexes, not only do they have, at this point, 100 plus trading pairs, which is pretty peanuts compared to Aerodrome. So they have less trading pairs, but their liquidity is absolutely crazy. And they're pushing, 10 million plus a day in trading fees. So I don't know, like the perp dexes are going to rival the Uniswaps and the Aerodromes and the typical dexes that happen. And if Aerodrome doesn't figure out how to add leverage trading and perpetual, contracts to their decks, then they're going to have issues going forward. So if they can implement it like Aerodrome or like Uniswap is doing, then they should be fine. So, all right. I see a lot more questions, but I'm sure you guys want to jump into the top 7. So let's go ahead and jump into that first. All right. And then, so after I go over these top 7, right now I'm going to order them 1 through 7 in terms of preference. And then, and again, if you don't know why I chose these 7, you can either read them here or you can go to my last live stream, 100 minutes of just alpha. And once we get these 7 in order, then we can go over the poll that you guys already have, like voting over there. And if you haven't voted, vote now. And then we'll go over the suggestions that you just gave. So I heard a lot of Keetas and Kaspas and all these other ones, but we have to find one. That is our motive today, is finding one altcoin. Okay, so first up, we have Solana. So right now, you'll see these 7 on the screen. Just choose one. Choose one of the 7 and throw it in chat. And let's see how many we can get from each group. So we have Solana, Tau, Kaspa, Sui, Canton, XRP, and Hype. First up, we got Solana. The reason it made this top 7 as a recap is because of its fast TPS, semi-fast finality. So its finality currently sitting around like 13 seconds, which is a pretty big deal. Like Solana, the transactions are fast, so the TPS is fast. But TPS doesn't mean everything. You need finality, because what happens without finality is I could send a transaction, I could recall the transaction, and it returns. So TPS is basically I sent a transaction and it counts. And we have to account for the finality. The sender sent it to the receiver has it, and it's unable to be taken back. So that's about 13 seconds, which is very slow in terms of like where we're at in 2026 in blockchain technologies. So Solana, it has its issues. It has been doing very well in terms of being able to maintain a network that's constantly online. May 2024, I think, over 2 years. It's been since the last outage, or about 2 years. It's been since the very last outage it's had. So they're definitely doing a lot of things over there with Solana that are actually in the right way. Now, Solana, I will say, this last bull market, I'm gonna go against the grain on this one. This last bull market has been tough for it to maintain that number 1 spot for retail. So if I go, let's go ahead and quickly go through this, because I don't want to just sit here and talk without proving my analysis. What I can do is I can come down here to the metrics. I can Control F for revenue, Control F revenue. And I could typically go by chains, or if I could find chains, fees, and revenue. Boom, revenue by chain. Here we go. And Solana has started to really meet its match amongst other L1s. So you have a lot of like stablecoin providers like Tron. Base is absolutely crushing it. I mean, this is a 24-hour. It's better to actually filter this by the 30-day. I mean, the more the time period, the better the average. But these are your networks that are absolutely crushing it on these fees, and Solana is meeting its match. So Solana was the big dog this, I would say, the early parts of this last bull market, but definitely last bull market. And there's other chains that are allowing people to gain as much, or if not more, revenue, especially Hyperliquid. So you see it right now, Hyperliquid's only down here, but whenever you switch it by like perp dex, their trading volume, let's go perp dex by protocol. You see it's absolutely crushing it. You're looking at, and it's usually about 10 billion per day. Earlier I said 10 million. My bad. When you're talking like volume that's going buys and sells, you're looking typically at about 10 a day. So Hyperliquid is second to none. And honestly, Hyperliquid and Aster were neck to neck going into like Q3, Q4 of last year. And Hyperliquid has clearly taken the lead. That's honestly what I was waiting for. Aster, I put above it, but I lost that, I would say. I did a versus video about Hyperliquid versus Aster, and I gave Aster the dub. You can go check out why, and I clearly lost that battle, but I still think Aster is a very solid project. It's a much lower market cap, so I gave it the dub based off of asymmetric upside. So it has like a, at this point, maybe like an 8 times or even lower times market cap. So if you're doing what, half of the trading volume, or maybe just under half, and you're 5, 6, 7 times smaller market cap, then you have the better asymmetric risk. So I would still choose Aster over Hyperliquid in terms of asymmetric upside. All right, so wrapping this back up to Solana, that was Solana's big MO, was how do I collect fees, how do we make money, and all these things. And right now it is not being able to keep up with the big dogs, but you had a pretty solid DEX volume, and this was, I think, in the month of March, it got about 70 billion, but I just showed you there was 10 billion in a single day, and that's usually on average with Hyperliquid. So Solana is starting to crumble a little bit. All right, and not to FUD out your bags, I love Solana, but we have to be honest about each of these projects. We have to be pros and cons and then move on. Somebody said Tau earlier, so Tau is in my top 7. And it is mainly because I like proof of work networks. And then honestly, so I last time I put 145 subnets. It's actually like 125 if I'm not mistaken. And I did a deep dive on why Tau is definitely valuable. So Bitcoin is monetized in energy. BitTensor Tau is monetized intelligence. And there is so I'm not going to get too long-winded on this. With Bitcoin, you have a currency, the US dollar, that is losing its value. So these people that want to retain their purchasing power, they buy Bitcoin as opposed to just holding dollars, right? So that is a network right there. It's one network going into the other. Over here, you have LLMs, you have GPU sharing, you have AI agents, and all these other use cases for crypto. And we have a subnet approach towards this. And there's, again, 125 plus subnets over there on Tau. And this is why I think it has a network of networks effects. And I compared it from Moore's law. Well, not Moore's. Was it Moore's or it's? I know the network of network is Reed's law. And Moore's law, I believe. No, that's the transistors. Anyways, so there's this other name for Bitcoin's one network to one network, but Reed's law, it's more advanced because there's more options. So, all right, in terms of why Tau, well, I'll give the 2 pluses and then I'll give my rebuttal towards it. So you have to have high capital to be able to sprout out a subnet for Tau, which is pretty important because if I consider something decentralized, then I should be able to develop on it, right? I mean, not necessarily on Tau. At one point, I believe subnets were over $10 million just to start one. So these 125 different subnets that they have was very costly. And they did that on purpose because, well, multiple reasons, but they didn't want to bog down the network. Because if people are sending pictures of JPEG cats and it's bogging down a network, then it's ineffective, it's inefficient. So Bitcoin's currently having that issue with the knots versus the whatevers, but Tau has figured that piece out by making it costly. And then I would say a downturn to what Tau is a high VC. When we talk about Kaspa, we talk about like fair launches, Bitcoin fair launch. I love fair launches. You can't really call even like a proof of work network like Tau a fair launch, because if something has a ton of VC capital, it's kind of like how Satoshi was able to mine 1 million Bitcoin. That is a huge amount of supply for one individual person. And VC is able to do that, right? Now with Kaspa, for example, there's nobody in the world that owns over 1% of the supply. I think actually, oh, wait, let me retrace that. So there is a whale. Nobody knows who this whale is. That's most likely Binance. If I had to guess, I just, that's pure speculation. So don't hold me to that. I just completely went. Okay. So yeah. We're talking about who owns what, right? So we have a whale that owns maybe like 1.5 to 2% of all the Kaspa supply, and that's much more fair launch than, in my opinion, even Bitcoin was. So that's interesting. But whenever you have a proof of work network that people can mine, but a lot of people that are smart and have a ton of money have an advantage, I wouldn't necessarily call it fair launch. So that would be my one take, more pushback on Tau, though I do believe it is a very solid network. And also, their founder stepped away. So like Bitcoin, there's no single entity they can go after to shut it down, and I appreciate that. So next up, we already alluded to what Kaspa is. I'm not going to sound too biased here. I think in terms of perfect money, Kaspa is second to none. There's a lot more that cryptocurrency does than solves money. So what Satoshi set out to do, Kaspa is the number one, hands down, peer-to-peer network out there, because it's already done 5,500 TPS on its mainnet and test environment. So it's done what other proof of stake networks can't even do. So Solana itself hasn't even done 5,500 TPS, right? But Solana's also has a lot more use cases. It's not just a currency, right? So the issue with Kaspa scaling is it's going to have to be able to get faster, but it's also going to have to be programmable. So the data is going to definitely affect how that throughput is happening. So what I really appreciate about Kaspa is there's two different hard forks of this year. In one of them, Dagnite is going to be the second one that launches in Q3 of this year. That one takes Kaspa's block per second from 1 block per second to 0.25. So 4 blocks essentially think of it like this. It makes Kaspa, which already hit 5,500 TPS on mainnet, 4 times faster. So you now have a proof of work blockchain that shoots for theoretical 20,000 TPS, which is absolutely crazy. This has never been done in cryptocurrencies. And these are my use case. This is my selling point for Kaspa, right? I'm not talking about it has the Hyperliquids or it has the big apps out there that are collecting tons of revenue, but Kaspa is Aramaic for silver. That's literally the word for silver is Kaspa, which is typically seen as a medium of exchange as opposed to digital gold like a Bitcoin. So everything Satoshi set out to do has been solved and is still being progressed through that cryptocurrency there. And also, it doesn't stop at the 4x multiplier. Going into next year, Dagnite, in accordance with Rust progression, they're looking at trying to push it eventually to 100 blocks per second, which, again, all of these things, I always look at cryptocurrencies on how you revolutionize the entire asset class, not just your project. How are you a first-term mover in these different use cases? And Kaspa has done it over and over and over again. So it is a first-time mover in creating directed acyclic graphs. It's a first-time mover to be able to do 10 blocks per second. They just created and it actually goes live in the first hard fork. So earlier I alluded to the 2 hard forks. The first hard fork is actually next month in April. Actually, no, May. Sorry. So actually, it's still about a month away, but it's going to be in May, and it will introduce 2 things. You'll have Covenant Plus Plus, which essentially lays the framework for better programmability. And this will definitely, with that second hard fork I talked about in Q3 this year, adding vprogs to the network will be huge. You'll need Covenant Plus Plus already set in place, but also in that first hard fork is you're going to have Silverscript. So Silverscript, if you know anything about blockchains, a lot of times people put value on the smart contract programming language. So Kaspa has switched from Golang all the way to Rust. So think of Solana is written on Rust. It's a smart contract, very good for blockchains. but they now created Silverscript, which is for the developers. So they'll be able to develop on top of it. So Kaspa's crushing it. They created the best medium of exchange the world has ever seen, and they're pushing their way through vProgs and Covenant++ and Silverscript to become the best programmable network. So that's why it is on my top 7, and it's outside the top 50. So that's going to be a tough one to beat from my point of view. I try to remain unbiased, and I'll look at y'all's takes on it, but that's definitely a winner in my eyes. Moving on. I don't want to spend too much time on these. We got Sui. So speeding things up, a lot of things that I said about Solana earlier, it goes into Sui. So I talked about the VCs. The difference would be that Move programming language as opposed to Rust that I alluded to earlier. These are tick for tack. There's none that are better than the other. So I would definitely put Move and Rust as tier 1 programming languages. And the reason I'm very bullish on Sui overall is mainly because it's just Solana's younger brother. Solana is in its second bull market, going on to its third. Sui is in its first bull market, going on to its second. So if we looked at how Solana performed this last bull market, I think is exactly how Sui is going to perform this next bull market. And Solana went as low as $13. Sui should do much, much, much better. So we will see. All right, Canton Network. We have... So this is going to be my wild card. This one's very difficult to gauge, especially for, and honestly, I definitely don't see this one winning that top 7. But if you guys can, in the comments, let me know, make a strong case for this one. It barely made my top 7, and this one is pure well, CC and XRP are mainly just speculation. I can't fairly evaluate CC because it's a private blockchain, and they don't reveal. So basically, they hype everything. They've said we've got trillions and trillions of dollars worth of assets built on our blockchain, but it's private, so I can't go in and look at who has what. And that is a pro and a con. So it's good for you, the person who's actually minting the assets on the blockchain, but it's bad for me, the analyst, who has to evaluate these. So I'm not going to spend too much time on CC, but I think there's a lot of potential in that project. And if I could only hold CC or XRP, I'm not going to spoil it. I made the versus video. You have to watch it after this. All right. But I will talk about XRP. So with XRP, here's my pro is it is in bed with the banks. XRP is loved by the regulators. And you are starting to develop stablecoin volume over there with RLUSD. But let me ask you this. Why do you only have $300 million worth of RLUSD that is tokenized on the XRP ledger, but you have, I think, closer to like over $1 billion that is tokenized on the Ethereum blockchain? So there's more RLUSD that's created on Ethereum than on the XRP ledger, which to me is like your number one use case for stablecoin. Your number one use case is to help the banks transfer value, right? And you can do this multiple ways, but this private company decided to create all their tokens on day one, throw it into escrow, and have a leak, essentially. Every month they give X amount. Now, some people can trust it, some people don't, but what I will say, like, and Charles Koskitz has recently come out about it, he's talked about, I think 70% of all of the tokens ever created was given to like those main people over there at XRP. So it is highly centralized. It slowly leaks out over time and you get dumped on. So I will say that is a huge negative. But I will say there's this mysterious, like, you know, if you go down the rabbit hole of what XRP Army is, like there's some validity to what they say, you know. I consider myself XRP Army. I have a good bag of XRP. But it's not because I appreciate the vision. It is because I think there's potential in making money, and that's it. So what Brad Garlinghouse has done, what Ripple Labs has done, is very anti-crypto. And I'll take a second to rant here, but like I'm more on the lines of, if you're ready for the Clarity Act to pass in its current form, then you really have to question why you're in crypto. right? So the people that want it to pass in its current form are pro-bank. These are the people that want the institutions and the banks to remain in power. I got in crypto because I believe somewhat similar to what Satoshi believes. I think the people should have the power, down with the banks, down with the institutions. We don't need them, right? The Clarity Act, what it does is it helps give clarity to the institutions to allow them to, hold your assets and you could borrow against it, whatever, which helps with adoption, but we don't need it. Bitcoin was able to hit multiple trillions without adoption. And honestly, adoption still isn't even really here. So it's proven that it can do it without it. And what I don't want is Square to come in, all of these institutions to come in and start hijacking what we created. So that's what, like, one thing for sure at the Crux of Crypto is I'm always going to be 10 toes down for the crypto purists, the cypherpunks, and that's what we preach here. So XRP, I don't know what you're doing over there as a visionary. Oh, I can't follow in line with what you're doing as vision, but I can appreciate your project in a sense. So you made my list, but it's only in terms of ROI. And then lastly, I was very long-winded there. I'll go through Hype. I'll jump into the Q&A, and then we'll figure this out. So Hyperliquid, I briefly showed you the metrics already, 10 bill plus a day in volume. It's decentralized, but the last word, VC. So most of these projects do very well, and most of these projects will also dump on you. So I would say the tokenomics on Hyperliquid are some of the most egregious, the worst ones I've ever seen. I've seen pretty bad ones. I would say people don't know about Chainlink's tokenomics. I like Chainlink, but definitely go look at their tokenomics. It's egregious. And what's worse is they only allow like X amount of people to stake on their platform, Chainlink. And guess who's staking? These are the people calling the shots. So if all of these people want to control the network, right? These people buy the token. They cannot add to the governance or the security of the network because these people already have the tokens and they stake to the full capacity. So these people can't get in. So that's an issue I have with Chainlink. But going back real quickly to it's kind of a VC thing, and that's why I brought that up with Hyperliquid. Is we have to look at how these venture capitalists are handling these projects. Is it healthy for the community? What percentage of the tokens? Tokenomics is a massive deal on when you're investing into these projects. So that's my take on Hyperliquid. Maybe it wins this one. We'll see. But and over there on the left-hand side, I'll briefly say there were some honorable mentions. So there's we're like, all right, we could find a meme coin, right, that fits the mode. You got Pepe, SPX, and Brett. Those are my 3 favorite meme coins. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about DeFi. So I wanted to throw AVAX, ADA, and Aave in there. And those are just honorable mentions. So they didn't make my top 7, but they're definitely valuable projects that everyone, I think, should have at least a little exposure to or just think about it. Do the research, watch Crux of Crypto's videos, ask your friends, read the white papers, continue to educate yourself because this space is a plethora. It's just awesome. You've never seen an asset class go multiple trillions in just a decade and a half. So we got to over 4 trillion at one point. We almost got to 4.5 trillion in I think it was like February of last year. So all right, very long-winded there. Let's give me a break and I'll go ahead and start reading. Dang, there's a lot of questions here and a lot of people in chat. So awesome to see you guys in chat. Much love. I'm scrolling up to try to find you where you guys are at. You just heard about my top 7. We're about to place these, rank these, and then we're going to see which ones you have that can compete with whichever one we win, whichever one of those 7 wins, right? Alrighty. So let's start. I have no idea where I left off, but I'll go ahead and just start right about here. All right, give me 1 sec. All right, that's your cue to drink water. All right, Wade says late, but he's trying to catch up. Link, XRP, and render. All right, so Wade, you saw the thumbnail. You saw XRP and render in the X. So I'm sure that brought you in here. Let me quickly give my takes on those. I didn't talk about, I just talked about Link a little bit and why it's not going to make my top 7 list. Though I do believe it's one of the 3 most fundamentally sound projects in all of crypto. I've talked about that many times in the past. So I hold a lot of Link. I'm a Link Marine. The tokenomics are egregious. CCIP has absolutely been crushing it. Their interoperability is really second to none. Possibly like Aave or Uniswap may have slightly better interoperability in terms of how many projects they influence, but Chainlink's up there. My biggest thing is how centralized. I just talked about how they have a max capacity of people who are allowed to stake and get governance of the network. And then their tokenomics is utterly disgusting. I want to say like 60 to 70% of those tokens were given all to just their insiders, many years ago. But I will say 2017 or whatever time frame it came out, the tokenomics were not understood yet. In crypto, we know if you try to give 70% of a new project's tokens to like a select few people, people will just run. They're not going to buy your project. Chainlink, on the other hand, they were very early. People didn't know what to look for. And I think there's still people that are slowly selling those tokens. I mean, they got for fractions of a penny. So they are up. Keeta is my number one Sysmanet. Yeah, I mean, Keeta is y'all's, I would say as a community so far in these comments, Keeta has absolutely crushed it and is second to none right now. So you guys are loving Keeta more than really anything I just talked about, which is wild. All right, so ICP says VE. VE, I strongly encourage you to watch my ICP versus Near Protocol video. I think ICP has done a phenomenal job with canisters, so that's what they brought to the table. I think Definity is too spread out. What I would tell you is whenever that many influential people, I'm talking about the Definity Foundation, too many influential people all the way up to the founders of the project leave a project, it is a red flag. So I would say ICP, I'd be very hesitant on that one. I just think there's too many developers. What is that? They have an app that they really try to spin out. It just hasn't held up. It's very scalable. It's a fast network, but I would not have ICP even over Near. And I explain why Near Protocol, in my opinion, is a better project because it's building a use case, which is AI agents that's actually being adopted, as opposed to anything that ICP has built out yet. So those are just my thoughts. If there's more ICP people in here, we'll definitely spend more time talking about that one. Brad, 10 BPS to 100 BPS, says Brad. All right, so Brad, real quick, let me go ahead and explain this. He's talking about Kaspa. Kaspa in Q3, or no, not, yeah, Q3 of this year. So think like July, August, sometime around there. July, August of this year. Kaspa is going to drop a hard fork that introduces two things. First is going to be your Silverscript programming language, allowing developers to develop effectively on that network. And then the second thing is, actually, no, that's Covenant++. So you're talking about Dag Knight. Sorry. That was, okay, first hard fork is 24 March, April, May. So that's literally like a month away. Dag Knight, which is going to increase the block throughput from 10 blocks to 40. So let me definitely clarify. It's actually 0.25 ms to 0.40. So in the best conditions, it would turn it from 10 blocks per second to 40 blocks per second. Now, maybe you're alluding to the 100 blocks per second as Jonathan and Michael Sutton's end state for Kaspa, because that is very doable. And I think what they've said is 2027 is going to be the end all be all for that. So, by next year, we could have a proof of work network theoretically hitting, if it already hit 5,500 TPS at 10 blocks per second, you just multiply that by 10. So that would be 55,000 TPS. That is faster than Visa. And it'd be the first blockchain, well, technically block DAG, the first digital ledger that has hit faster speeds than Visa. And I'm just here relaying data that has been proven. So you keep shilling all your other projects, but Kaspa is on a mission, y'all. On a mission. All right, VE, what do you think about the future of ICP? Yeah, I gave my take on it. So look at the ICP chart. You see that massive just dump as soon as those early investors got into it. It's tough. Like the technology's, it's solid, but you can only have like You need adoption. It doesn't matter how good your technology is. Ask Cardano. Cardano is a very solid project. It has like the best peer-reviewed. They're very similar in nature. They both focus the peer-reviewed aspect and the slow mover. So IOHK, Definity, they took the slow route, slow methodical approach, and clearly the markets didn't appreciate it. If you hone in too much on the most secure network, we program the same way that NASA does with Haskell. You have to learn Plutus to do this, that, the third, blah, 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 blah. Like if you focus on security and forget about adoption, people are going to sleep on your project, and vice versa. If all you do is focus on adoption, you're going to create a horrible network that breaks, which Solana did that at first. They focused on adoption and their network wasn't ready. So it just kept going down and down and down. And eventually they fixed it. So good on Solana. But you have to have both. You have to have good technology and adoption. And this is where you get projects like, Hyperliquid. Hyperliquid's a very fast layer 1 blockchain, and they're printing revenue over there. And that's what we're looking for. So, all right. Aaron, sorry, Crux, I do not have any CC in my portfolio anymore. If that says anything, I do have XRP though. All right, so Aaron, he's definitely XRP Army over Canton Army. Fair enough. Not going to tell you who I chose, but I already did that rundown. And I'll tell you, I think both are solid projects. You see them both on my top 7 list. Canton, to me, honestly, Canton is just another network that exists and it has potential to make money. So I treat XRP and Canton very similar. And I think last 2 weeks ago, I dropped a video on how Ripple Labs, they purchased Hidden Road. They rebranded Hidden Road to Ripple Prime, and it is a network that is currently on DTCC's rails, which Canton has a partnership with. So there is some kind of ties in there. Definitely check out that video. But I would definitely, at this point, anytime you're thinking about buying XRP, think about buying Canton, and vice versa. If you're thinking about buying Canton, buy XRP. I think those are two very similar projects that a lot of people are sleeping on that have potential. All right. So KG. But what good is XRP if they use a round for gas now? Very good question. In crypto, we always worry about the use case. Like, why would I buy a project if the use case is bad, right? And I'm looking at you, Ondo holders. So Ondo has really zero use cases other than governance token. Like, it is a token that exists. There's speculation. There is Ondo chain that's supposed to be dropping, and maybe the Ondo token eventually gets used for Ondo chain. There's a lot of different ways that I could think Ondo could be used to help boost the network. Why not allow people to gain passive Ondo if they're holding their Ondo global market stocks? There's a lot of different use cases, and that's the issue. Is we invest into stuff and sometimes it doesn't have the use case, right? But if XRP is not forcing you, which currently XRP right now, if you try to transact on the XRP ledger, you have to use XRP. But what he's talking about is from bank to bank. I think there is a way to use Ripple Labs technology without paying an XRP, which is detrimental to a network. Like, it severely is detrimental. So there's definitely something to worry about there. If XRP isn't a gas token, if it isn't X, Y, and Z token, then what is it, right? And again, to me, it's just pure speculation. It's reached like 150 billion market cap off pure speculation. Like, it hasn't done anything groundbreaking. It does 1500 TPS, which is pretty solid, whatever. It is a proof of, it has an interesting consensus model. I'm not going to say it's like a proof of work network like Bitcoin, because it has its issues, but especially its centralized issues. So to me, the trade-offs, like even comparing to Bitcoin, might not even be worth it. Yes, it's more scalable than Bitcoin. You can do about 300 transactions for a penny on the XRP ledger. So it solved the scalability issues, but it's not more secure or decentralized than Bitcoin. So the trilemma, it's losing 2 of the 3, has a much lower market cap. Just my thoughts. All right. spent a lot of time on XRP today. TRW, they did that on purpose to build out the stablecoin on the platform. Yeah, so I do think that they have a method to their madness with RLUSD. Yeah, so RLUSD is the top 10 stablecoin. Cool. But I don't think, no, like, I'm going to be honest with you. More people are going to the Ethereum ecosystem and tokenizing their RLUSD as opposed to XRP or XRPL, because there's different ways on the Ethereum network. You can use ERC20 to make it more scalable. It's faster. It can be cheaper. I would say the L2s on Ethereum are more efficient than the XRPL. Ethereum itself isn't. So that's one thing to consider. But I just showed you like Polygon Matic's absolutely crushing it in the fees. Arbitrum's doing well. A lot of Base is up there. All three of those L2s are crushing it. There's a lot of different options, especially for interoperability. So XRP is not interoperable with a ton of just projects out there, while Polygon Matic has its hand in everybody's cookie jar. So RLUSD is going to have issues getting adopted if it has the two biggest competitors are USDC and USDT having to go against those, and then also just the network itself. Like, people are going to, I think that just speaks volumes to me. If people are using your number one use case, a stablecoin, a different network for that, then you have to ask what's going on. All right. It's also to start using the EVM sidechain. Yes, so XRP is becoming more interoperable amongst other networks. I do talk about that in I think it's XRP versus Keeta video. There's a section for interoperability, and I discuss that. So definitely a video you want to check out. I think XRP will be a bust, especially price action wise. So we got pros and cons. We have some people in here for XRP and some people against it. You guys heard my take many times already. Angel, please click the like button and subscribe to Crux of Crypto. Angel, you're awesome. I appreciate you. Crux, Toshi. So this is the first meme coin that I got from you guys, but I will show you on my list over there. You see Toshi, it exists. And the reason Toshi exists on my list is because it has the Coinbase effect. So Base ecosystem, that's the L2. It's absolutely crushing on the metrics, but I would say the number one race for like the base meme coin, it took a while to play out. You had really Brett, which had the clear winner advantage. Actually, going way back, we had Degen versus Brett. So, I mean, I'm an OG on this one. You had Degen and you had Brett. And these were like the first two that got around 300 mil market cap. Brett ended up getting like the Pepe effect. So it had the Matt Fury narrative. Degen didn't get that effect, right? Degen started going down. Brett kept going up. Brett passed over $1 billion market cap. Degen had issues. Degen ended up rebranding. I think they did something with AI agents or something, and they gave it a use case. So now you have a meme coin with the use case. It started doing okay. Brett ended up pulling back quite a bit. And then Toshi, in my opinion, the community kept going up and right. They had some really weird price action in Q1, Q2 of last year, and I think it was very manipulated. But again, if we look at Coinbase, if anybody's going to manipulate anything that has a good amount of money, it goes with my XRP thesis. These are people with a lot of money, influence, and they're probably going to win. So that's why I invest, who is manipulating this project. I think Toshi is a solid hold. So just my thoughts on that one. Let's quickly rank these, and then we'll go through those comparisons in that Q&A and your thoughts. So, all right, so first up, I'm going to go ahead and cross out. There's a lot of you guys that had rebuttals against XRP. So I'm going to cross this one out. Let's go ahead and just strike through it. Boom. XRP, you're out of there. Hyperliquid, I think none of you guys have really given a good rebuttal to why that should not be a number one crypto. Canton coin, I've had a good amount of people pushing back on that one. And really that's because, again, it's just a private network. There's no way for us to honestly evaluate it. So they could be saying anything. We have to take it. Sui, Kaspa, Tau, Solana, and Hype. So it leaves us with 5. Um, and most importantly, we're looking at asymmetric risk. So if I'm not buying Bitcoin, what is the other one altcoin that I'm going to buy? And it has to be, if it's really good, but has a low market cap, that's going to be your winner, right? Unless you're really, really, really good and you have a fairly semi high market cap. So my thought is like Solana, man, like you are absolutely crushing it. I think I gave enough reasons on why Solana should not be the number one altcoin. Most importantly was Hyperliquid taking its volume away. 70 billion in a month is okay. I'm not trying to hate on Solana. It did very well this bull market. I like Solana. I hold Solana. I can't give it number one because the competition is too stiff. The market cap's at 50 mil. So let's go ahead and scratch that one off the list. I'm sure a lot of people are cringing, but I think that is a good enough reason. All right, so go to text, strike through. All right, so now we got Tau, Kaspa, Sui, and Hyperliquid. So Tau, all right, we got to look back at asymmetric risk, right? Let's go to Tau, and let me give you a take on why I don't think it should be number one, but I'm not going to go ahead and cross it out. I'm going to let you guys do a rebuttal real quick in the comments. It's down 60%, not even 60% in 2 years, right? Now, if I go back to my list, let's just open Sui. I just said Tau is down 60% in 2 years. What do y'all think Sui is down? Alrighty, Sui is down 80, almost 84%. So Sui is down much, much, much more than Tau is. Now, we have to ask ourselves, does Sui even get the attention that it deserves? You know, we can look at it here in a sec. Is it pushing the revenue? Is there volume actually being traded? Whatever happened to the Cetus protocol exploit? These are all questions that we have to have when evaluating a project. So let's quickly go into the Q&A. I just gave you 2 projects, Sui versus Tau. You guys let me know, and I'll go ahead and read them out while we're doing this. So, and while you guys are posting, I'll read your comments now. ICP is full of drama, says Reiki. I agree. What is the price prediction on Arrow? Melch, I honestly don't do very many price predictions, and I don't want to give a price prediction in a bear market. So, but what I will tell you, these are projects that definitely have, they can definitely 20, 30x because their market caps are low enough. But again, that has to go into that super cycle that I do believe that we're going into starting Q3 into Q4 this year. So, take with that what you will. Thanks for the explanation, Crux, says Brad. Well, welcome in, Brad. So, you appreciate it. This year, Toshi will skyrocket, says Angel. I agree. A day after crypto had its biggest liquidation event in crypto history, I bought a JPEG cat pixel, and it was Toshi. I bought Toshi. The day after $20 billion got liquidated in crypto, your boy bought Toshi. Wild. That's how much of a crazy asset class this is. All right. Why use RLUSD if we already have Tether and USD Circle is my argument. V Hunt, very good question. Let me explain why. So let me pull it up. Here. Let me see if I can just go through here to get there. Oh, let me actually switch my screen. There we go. Let me see if it'll get me to the exchange. Cryptocurrencies, NFTs, categories. All right, well, I'm about to go through it through Google, so don't do this. Aave. Boom. So Aave is the #1 borrowing and lending platform in all of crypto. So come over here to use Aave. Let's go to the V4. Looking at this in real time. Accept all. So usually this goes by liquidity, like APY yields. So if there's a ton of, for example, like a lot of people are going to be lending out their Ethereum, so the APY is going to be pretty low, right? Whenever you have USDC and USDT, there's a ton of people already lending that out, so they get low APY. So what you can do is get a cryptocurrency that has lower Right now, it shows 0%. This typically is around 4 to 5% for most borrowing and lending platforms that I've seen. Right now we're in Aave v4. If I go to like Aave v3, most likely this is going to say a 5% APY, as opposed to holding like 3% from your USDC. So that's exactly why there's competition there. So these liquidity pools from people put their money into it, and what I would say to get the best ROIs is you're going to want something that's going to have risk to it, but also has potential. And that's how you're going to get your best returns. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump back into the comments real quick and see the difference between people who like Tau, and then people who like Sui. So I gave my 2 takes on that. All right, Sui became so centralized, and with an ETF staking, leaves them open to a governance takeover from Wall Street. That's true. I would say Sui is highly more centralized. So Tau has the VC in it, but it's not as centralized. It is a proof of work network at the end of the day. Sui, if I'm not mistaken, has unlimited supply. Bye-bye says Solana. Bye-bye Solana says Daniel. I see that. Tau is down less because it has more community backing and recognition. All right, Sui still looks bad because of the hacks. Yeah, so Cetus protocol got destroyed. We're talking $140 million. And also, they froze the funds from the attacker. So that's a pro and a con. It is centralized. They can stop everything from happening, right? And they proved it there. So they were able to retrieve a lot of that. But all the meme coins, like the deep books of the world, like Walrus, Ica, all of these different projects built on Sui got hammered. And it's all because of the #1 exchange at the time, which was Cetus protocol. So really, honestly, I would not be buying anything Sui related other than Deepbook. I think Deepbook is still kind of a winner. Walrus is okay. Ica is okay. You got some other plays that are okay. I just wouldn't be really buying them until they've proven they can survive a bear winter. So those are my thoughts. Let's see if there's any more conversation on Sui and Tau before we pick that winner. It looks like so far Tau is a winner. Sui has an unlock in April, and Tau is overbought at the moment. I would wait to DCA later in the year. Okay, so that's more of a neutral response. My favorite, Sui and Cetus. Okay, so we got a couple more people talking about Sui and good thought. All right, from just those comments, we're going to knock Sui out. Okay, so boom, boom. And that only means what happens next, we have to give Kaspa and Hype. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open up a poll. Kaspa and Hype. And I'm going to try to sell both of them to you guys. Actually, let me quickly read the poll results. So what is the #1 altcoin going into this? This is before I said anything. You guys have been going 60 votes. That's a lot. We got Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and then other. So you guys have explained tons of them. Solana and XRP are tied at 25%. So you guys like Solana and XRP just as much. They've already been knocked out. So sorry for you guys who voted that one. But the other guys that have voted for other, you guys might win this because Ethereum hasn't made much of a win, much of this conversation really. And that's because its market cap is too dang high. So Ethereum is just too high. Let's just be honest. But it is a very valuable network. I'm not telling you to sell your Ethereum. We're talking risk to reward here, y'all. So you guys understand. All right, let's go back into this poll real quick. Let's go ahead and end this poll. Let's start a new one. And I would say you can vote whenever you want, but what we're going to do is Kaspa versus Hype. And this is about to be a awesome poll because I think it's going to be a lot closer than what you guys think. So Hyperliquid. Boom. All right, and I'm about to explain these both, and you can answer anytime you want in that poll. All right. Hyperliquid, you have a revolutionary niche. You have an evolutionary application. You know, these decentralized exchanges are I would say, a #4 use case maybe. For cryptocurrencies, you have peer-to-peer, you have smart contracts, you have oracles. I would say borrowing and lending / DeFi platforms, right? Hyperliquid has figured it out. It has done very well. I brought up the revenue earlier. It has good trading pairs. Kaspa, on the other hand, I talked about the 2 hard forks, and I talked about as early as this time next year, we could be seeing something faster for the first time than Visa. It's already faster than really any blockchain out there, and it's a block DAG. So it didn't have to sacrifice its decentralization and its security. So I think Kaspa is onto something, and I think that's enough information for you guys to vote. Let's check it out. All right. Well, Hyperliquid takes the dub. Your boy well, I was hoping Kaspa would win, I'm not going to lie, but it didn't. So there we go. Hyperliquid is, I'll be honest, Hyperliquid has done more than Kaspa so far in terms of just like revenue and stuff like that. Kaspa is still highly speculative. All right, and lastly, for the number 1 altcoin this bull market, I'm going to open up another poll. It's going to be Tau versus Hype. Give you guys one last pitch. We're going to figure this one out. Tau versus Hyperliquid. Tau, Hype. There we go. Alrighty. This is a tough one. You have centralization at its finest. You have proof of work network that follows the same emissions as Bitcoin. 4-year cycle, by the way. It just did its first halving last December. The founder stepped away. You have 125 subnets solving all these different real world issues. On the other hand, you have the best trading activity that happens. The tokenomics, I mean, they're not bad. I would say, well, earlier I did say Hype's tokenomics are pretty bad, but I'll be honest, I think the way that they've been burning lately is very good. So I'll give them that. I think VC's got a lot of the percentage of it, but they are burning a ton of their tokens, which is good for you bag holders. I mean, I hold Hype, so now here is a counter argument for Hype. Aster, Lighter. We have, if you include Aster and Lighter and combine them, it's about the same volume as Hyperliquid, right? The competition is going to be much higher going into this next era of perp dexes. That's something to consider. So there you go. Let's see which one is winning. We got Tau. All right. So I don't have any like way to celebrate this, but what I will do is I'll cross out Hype, and Tau has won it all, right? That's crazy. I mean, going into this, I kind of knew that Tau was going to be a top 3 contender. It's held up well. There's a lot of people that believe in this project. The deep dive that I did, man, I learned so much about it. And I think a lot of people are going to continue buying this project. So if you guys enjoyed this opportunity to sit down and really learn about altcoins, because right now, you see the FUD, you see the quantum computing articles, you see these people, like, you're probably going to look at my thumbnail and be like, oh, he's talking about altcoins. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. I'm preparing, right? I'm preparing for the next bull market. And though I do think that we're just under half a year away, this is the best time to be doing this. We have to continue to learn. If Tau continues to pull back, we know which currency to buy. It just won this competition. There's a lot of you believers. I believe in it. And when you have a lot of believers, you have consensus. And if you buy the project at the right time, you can become a millionaire. So, and trust me, I am by experience. I'm not just up here speaking. I've made a ton of money in cryptocurrency, and I'm bringing you guys along on this next bull run. So I do appreciate it. Just real quick, let's go ahead and go through this. I want to save this until after we made the pick, but 2 best altcoins. These are my 2 best. So Tau at 1. I was hoping Kaspa would win. I was a little biased. But what I'm going to do with this video, I'm dropping it this week, is explain further in depth about why these are the 2 best altcoins, in my opinion, going into the next bull market. Real quick, if you look in the description, I have a Instagram, and I also have a TikTok. So your boy's blowing up. I just hit 60. in the top 100 in terms of following me on these platforms. And I would definitely appreciate it there if you would. And lastly, we just dropped our new memberships. And this first tier is the first time we've had a membership as low as $30. So the students, it is all about the academy, which Tim has 60 plus videos. It takes your trading from rookie to pro. It goes into Fibonacci extension, retracements. It goes into 3 white soldier, like all of these different trading, not just acronyms, but tools. So we have an academy that helps teach that. We have a VIP group, and this we have, I want to say, over 500 traders right now that are in this tier, and they're absolutely crushing it. Even when the markets fall, they know how to short the markets, and there's trading signals that are dropped daily. There's VIP trading, VIP Q&As every single day that were in Discord. And then lastly, we got the Gem Hunters, which a lot of you guys actually just got grandfathered in. So this is a pretty cool one. I'm going to definitely be doing weekly live streams again with you guys. And it's going to be all about finding those low cap gems. And again, don't overdo it. Don't throw all your bag into some risky altcoin because it just launched, right? Right now, we're just trying to find the best asymmetric periods, and we're trying to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. So if you're doing anything different, be very wary, be careful out there, because crypto is a tough market to win in. So without further ado, I am Crux. I'm a fundamental analyst, and I do appreciate you. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard, I bring the alpha to you guys. So I switched it up. I used to do more macro, like what's happening that day. The live streams are starting to turn into like thinking activities with you guys. And I can walk you guys through how I think as an analyst, and you guys are definitely enjoying it. My last live stream, I got like 900 views on that video, which is crazy. That's like double the other ones where I talk about, I don't know, current Iran situation, or I don't know, the price of gold. You guys want the altcoin alpha, and I'm bringing it to you. So make sure you subscribe, hit that like, share it with a friend, and I'll catch you guys on the flip side. Peace.